The whisper of reality. What if I told you that reality is not silent, but constantly speaking? At first, this may sound poetic, even strange, yet think of the subtle alignments that cross your path each day. The song that plays at the exact moment someone enters your thoughts, the number that seems to follow you across clocks, receipts, and license plates, the chance meeting with a stranger who unexpectedly carries the very answer you have been seeking. For generations, people have brushed these moments aside, classifying them as coincidence, luck, or statistical oddity. But deep inside, there is a persistent tug that whispers these events are more than random noise. Ancient civilizations knew it. Mystics recorded it. Philosophers debated it. They recognized reality as a conversation, not a monologue. And they called these meaningful alignments omens, signs, or the language of the soul. Our modern age, with its devotion to measurement and data, struggles to make room for such experiences. We have been trained to trust external authority above our own perception, to value what can be counted over what can be felt. From childhood, our attention was directed toward logic, structure, and predictability. Schools rewarded us for memorizing answers, but they did not encourage us to listen for the quiet questions of life. Creativity, intuition, and imagination were often dismissed as distractions rather than vital tools of perception. Over time, this conditioning narrowed our vision, until only the measurable was considered real. Yet the very moments that shake us awake, the perfect timing, the intimate alignment, the unlikely encounter, insist that there is more. Ignoring these signs does not erase them. It only dulls our capacity to notice. Reality, like the tide against the shore, continues to press its patterns, drawing shapes again and again in the sand of our daily lives. Each ignored sign is not wasted but patiently repeated, waiting for us to finally see. And when we do, everything changes. To recognize synchronicity is to rediscover a lost dimension of intelligence, not blind belief, but refined noticing. It is the art of perceiving meaning in the improbable, of widening reason to include the subtle. This awareness is not superstition, it is responsibility. For once you accept that the universe speaks, you must also choose how to respond. The Z, conditioning, that closed our eyes from the moment we entered the world. We were shaped by invisible lessons. Parents, teachers, and institutions taught us to value reason, order, and measurement above all else. We learned to divide experience into categories, to explain everything in terms of cause and effect, to prefer what could be calculated over what could be felt. This framework brought progress, but it came at a hidden cost. It dulled our sensitivity to patterns, stripped wonder from our daily perception, and replaced inner knowing with external authority. At school, we memorized data, followed schedules, and recited rules. But we did not learn how to listen to the subtle signals that life constantly provides. If a child reported sensing an event before it happened, or noticing connections between dreams and reality, adults often dismissed it as imagination. Over time, those children grew into adults who stopped trusting their intuition, convincing themselves that only what could be weighed or measured deserved their attention. This training was so complete that many of us now struggle to notice the obvious. Coincidences are downgraded to probability. Strange alignments are explained away as tricks of the mind. The repeated number on the clock is called nothing more than bias. Slowly, we have built a culture that treats synchronicities as illusions, rather than invitations. Yet deep inside, people feel the absence. They sense that something essential has been lost. This loss expresses itself as emptiness, as the subtle feeling that life is flat, mechanical, and indifferent. But synchronicity breaks through like light through cracks. The stranger who speaks the phrase you needed to hear. The image that repeats in different contexts until you finally pause. These experiences are reminders that the world is not a silent machine but a living conversation. To recover this perception is not to abandon reason, but to expand it. We must learn to honor both analysis and intuition, both measurement and meaning. The mind is capable of more than logic alone. It is a pattern recognition instrument, tuned to energy as much as to numbers. When we reclaim this capacity, life regains depth. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and in that restoration we discover that the conditioning of our past can be undone. Attention can be retrained. Awareness can be reawakened. Synchronicities wait patiently, but they cannot be forced. They can only be received by eyes willing to see and ears willing to listen. Cracks in the Facade history shows us that the greatest minds did not discard anomalies but treated them as clues. Carl Jung introduced the word synchronicity after years of observing coincidences in his patients' lives that carried deep meaning, yet defied logic. To Jung, these events suggested that the unconscious mind and the external world were bound by a hidden order. Nikola Tesla, whose genius was inseparable from his obsession with frequency and vibration, insisted that the secrets of the universe were written in patterns of energy. Albert Einstein himself, despite his devotion to mathematics, admitted that coincidence was God's way of remaining anonymous. Artists, philosophers, mystics, they all acknowledged that reality is not random but responsive. And yet society built a narrative that everything is mechanical, indifferent, and governed only by probability. This worldview insists that synchronicities are illusions created by confirmation bias, but cracks inevitably appear. The person you meet at the exact moment you are ready for change. The phrase repeated by 3 different people in one day. The number that follows you across contexts, echoing like a subtle refrain. Each alignment feels personal, almost intimate, as if the fabric of reality were leaning toward you, nudging your path. If the universe were only a blind machine, why would these events feel so tailored, so precisely timed? To dismiss them as chance is to ignore their effect. Synchronicities shift perception, inspire decisions, and open doors. They remind us that life is not flat, but textured, layered with meaning waiting to be recognized. The humility required is not belief in superstition, but willingness to admit complexity. The world is not a static object, but a living system, and you are not a passive observer, but a participant. Every alignment is a mirror reflecting your inner state and your readiness for growth. Reality does not waste signals. It repeats them, each time with greater clarity, until you either notice or choose to remain blind. Recognizing the cracks in the facade is the first step toward a richer life. It is not about abandoning logic, but about complementing it with perception. Once you allow for the possibility that the universe is responsive, you begin to notice design where before you saw only accident. This recognition is not the end, but the beginning. It invites you to participate consciously in the dialogue of existence, to treat synchronicity not as superstition, but as signal, a reminder that the ordinary world is layered with extraordinary intelligence, precision, too perfect to ignore. Think about the moments that arrive with such perfect timing that dismissing them as chance feels almost dishonest. You think of a friend you have not seen in years, and seconds later they send you a message. You open a book to a random page, and the words address the exact question weighing on your mind. You look at the clock, and again it reads 11:11 or 3:33, until the pattern is too consistent to brush aside. On their own, each event might appear trivial, but together they form a constellation of meaning. This constellation is what we call synchronicity, the map hidden within coincidence, the mirror through which reality reflects your focus and energy back to you. Synchronicity is not a rigid script forcing outcomes. It is not destiny written in stone. Instead, it is feedback, evidence that your inner world and outer circumstances are linked in ways deeper than logic alone can explain. The calmer you observe, the clearer the design becomes. When you chase signs in desperation, you cloud the mirror. When you relax into curiosity, the reflection sharpens. It is not about abandoning reason, but expanding it, realizing that attention shapes perception, and perception shapes action. By acting on consistent signals, you create a virtuous cycle. Opportunities begin to align. Supportive people enter your life, and timing itself appears to cooperate with your movement. This does not mean the universe is a vending machine delivering wishes. Rather, it means you are embedded in a living system that responds to focus. Just as a musician tunes an instrument, you tune your awareness. The notes you strike resonate outward, and synchronicities are the echoes returning. When you ignore them, the echoes fade. When you acknowledge and respond, the pattern strengthens. This is not superstition. It is alignment, a partnership between intention and environment. Consider the metaphor of walking through fog. At first, you see only a few feet ahead, but each step reveals more of the path. Synchronicities are like the shapes emerging in the mist, small confirmations that you are moving in harmony with something larger. To notice them is to regain trust that life is not random chaos, but responsive choreography. It is an invitation to keep walking, to trust that the next step will reveal itself when the time is right. The mechanism behind the mystery, behind the beauty of synchronicity, lies a mechanism that is both scientific and mysterious. Neuroscience shows us that the brain operates through a powerful filter known as the reticular activating system. This network determines which fragments of the millions of daily stimuli are allowed to enter conscious awareness. In simple terms, you notice what you focus on. Buy a new car, and suddenly that model appears everywhere. The cars were always there, but your brain had not tagged them as important until your attention shifted. This mechanism explains why intention is leverage. The moment you declare something meaningful, consciously or unconsciously, your awareness begins to highlight it. Synchronicities ride this filter, drawing your gaze to alignments that match your inner state. But the phenomenon cannot be reduced to brain function alone. Quantum physics has long suggested that consciousness interacts with reality at a fundamental level. The famous double-slit experiment revealed that observation changes the behavior of particles. This means reality is not a fixed machine but a responsive field. Your thoughts, emotions, and focus do not merely interpret the world, they shape the version of the world you encounter. Synchronicities are signs of this interaction, feedback loops between mind and matter. When you focus on scarcity, life mirrors scarcity back. When you focus on possibility, life arranges opportunities. This is why synchronicities often spike during transitions. When you commit to a new path, the pattern sharpens, guiding you with markers along the way. It is as though reality itself conspires to encourage your movement. The skeptic will say this is bias, but bias does not explain the precision nor the personal resonance these events carry. They arrive not as vague symbols but as intimate messages, tailored to the questions you carry. Imagine tuning a radio dial. Static fills the air until you find the right frequency, and suddenly the signal comes through clear. Your attention is the dial. Synchronicities are the music waiting on the other side. The more skillfully you tune, the stronger the signal becomes. This is not magic replacing causality. It is causality expanded, enriched by layers of meaning. Science is only beginning to measure. Synchronicity is the evidence that you are both observer and participant, that reality itself is listening as much as it is speaking. The subconscious and the web of life beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. The subconscious is always at work. It weaves together fragments of memory, intuition, and sensory impressions into patterns you rarely notice. When you set an intention, this deeper layer of mind begins aligning events and perceptions to match it. That is why, once you commit to a new direction, synchronicities seem to multiply. It is not that the universe suddenly changes, it is that your inner compass is now calibrated to detect what was previously hidden. The subconscious acts like a silent partner, adjusting your perception so that opportunities and signs fall into place. Consider the metaphor of a flock of birds wheeling across the sky. Each bird follows only simple rules, yet together they form elegant choreography. Reality works in a similar way. Small choices, sending a message, saying yes, protecting a no, create ripples that align with a larger rhythm. Synchronicity is the arrow painted on the floor, pointing to the next step. It does not push you, it indicates. But if you never move, the path remains invisible. Waiting endlessly for absolute proof is surrendering to inertia. Action is what reveals the next alignment. This truth explains why synchronicities are so often personal. They are not general signals, but intimate reflections of your own state, your own readiness. One person may notice repeating numbers while another receives a phrase repeated by strangers. The form matters less than the resonance it produces. What strikes you as meaningful will be dismissed by someone else, because the message was not meant for them. The dialogue is tailored, unique to the conversation between your subconscious and the field of life itself. Modern culture often dismisses this as imagination, but imagination is itself a channel of perception. Many innovations, discoveries, and works of art arrived through sudden alignments that felt guided. Scientists have admitted to breakthroughs emerging not from equations alone, but from dreams, chance encounters, or strange coincidences. Creativity thrives in partnership with synchronicity, because both rely on the subconscious to surface connections hidden from linear thought. To live without awareness of this process is to walk blind through a world full of signals. To embrace, it is to discover that reality is not indifferent, but responsive. The subconscious does not create meaning out of nothing. It reveals meaning already present. Synchronicities are its language, guiding you toward coherence between inner desire and outer experience. The key is not to force, but to listen, to allow curiosity rather than fear to shape your interpretation. Why some people see synchronicities and others do not. Why is it that some people report seeing synchronicities daily, while others move through life barely noticing them at all? The difference is not luck or fate, but awareness, vibration, and trust. Awareness is the simple permission to notice. Vibration is the emotional and energetic state you cultivate day after day. Trust is the courage to act on signals when they appear. People who live in chronic fear or doubt often miss the alignments around them. Their perception is narrowed, like windows fogged by anxiety. Even if meaningful events occur, they dismiss them before recognition. On the other hand, individuals who nurture gratitude, mindfulness, and curiosity tend to perceive synchronicities more frequently. This is not because the universe favors them, but because their inner state has cleared the lens of perception. A person in a receptive state notices the repeated number on a clock or the timely conversation with a stranger. They feel the resonance rather than dismiss it. Over time, this recognition becomes a reinforcing cycle. They notice, they act, they confirm, they expand. Life appears to flow, not because it suddenly became easy, but because they are rowing with the current rather than against it. Trust is, perhaps, the most crucial element. Without trust, synchronicities lose their power. Many people recognize the signs but hesitate to follow them. They wait for absolute proof, for overwhelming certainty, and by waiting, they weaken the connection. Reality rewards action. When you act on signals, even small ones, you strengthen the dialogue. You demonstrate that you are listening, and the conversation deepens. It is like tuning into a radio station. The more you adjust and respond, the clearer the music becomes. Cultural conditioning often trains us out of this trust. We are told to be rational, to ignore feelings that cannot be measured. But rationality without openness is blindness. To reclaim synchronicity is not to abandon logic, but to balance it with sensitivity. The result is not superstition, but expanded intelligence. Those who practice this balance discover that meaningful coincidences are not rare. They are everywhere, waiting for attention. The difference lies in whether you grant yourself permission to notice and the courage to act when they appear. How to recognize synchronicities. Without falling into delusion, one of the greatest challenges in working with synchronicity is distinguishing meaningful patterns from random noise. It is easy to slip into extremes, either dismissing every coincidence as chance or inflating every small occurrence into destiny. The truth lies in the balance, in cultivating discernment. Synchronicities announce themselves not by volume, but by resonance. They feel significant, personal, and strangely precise. They arrive with timing that interrupts your normal flow of thought and compels attention. The first domain where synchronicity often reveals itself is through numbers and repeating patterns. The sequence 1111, the repetition of 222 or 333, the same digits following you across contexts. Numbers carry symbolic weight across cultures, and when they appear in meaningful moments, they demand reflection. Ask yourself, what was I thinking or feeling when this appeared? The context gives the meaning. The second domain is symbolic encounters. A song plays with lyrics echoing your hidden question. A phrase repeats from multiple mouths in a single day. An animal crosses your path in an unusual way. The symbol itself is less important than the personal resonance it carries. To one person, a crow might mean nothing. To another, it signals transformation. Meaning emerges from relationship, not from static rules. The third domain is significant coincidence, the kind that alters direction. You are on the verge of giving up when the right opportunity appears. You meet someone precisely when their presence can shift your course. These moments often mark turning points, where the universe seems to lean in your favor. To work with these signals, cultivate a practice of documentation. Keep a synchronicity journal where you note the date, the context, the feeling, and the decision at stake. Over time, patterns emerge. You will notice that certain symbols precede clarity, others arrive as warnings. This personal map is more valuable than generic lists because it reflects your unique dialogue with reality. Recognizing synchronicity is not about hunting signs everywhere, but about noticing when life highlights a passage in bold. It is about slowing down enough to ask, does this align with what I need to hear? Does it challenge or confirm my path? Discernment grows with practice. The more you record, the more you will see that life is not random text but a story, alive with emphasis, rhythm, and invitation. Turning signals into transformation. Recognizing synchronicities is powerful, but recognition alone is not enough. If you only observe without responding, the dialogue weakens. The true power of synchronicity lies in action, in allowing these signals to shape your choices and direction. Transformation requires method, and the method begins with intention. Intention is the declaration of focus, the signal you broadcast into the field of reality. When you ask a clear, kind question, show me a step toward my purpose, you invite the world to respond. The more specific your attention, the more distinct the alignments appear. The second pillar is alignment. Alignment is the state of your inner world. The quality of your question shapes the quality of the answer, just as the condition of an instrument affects the sound it produces. Sleep, movement, silence, and nourishing relationships are not luxuries, but essential tools of spiritual technology. When you cultivate clarity inside, synchronicities become sharper outside. Confusion invites noise, but clarity invites precision. Alignment is not about perfection, but about presence, about returning to the frequency of trust and openness again and again. The third pillar is action. Signals are invitations, not guarantees. You cannot wait for certainty before moving. If the same number sequence, phrase, or symbol repeats across days, it is a nudge to act. Take a step, however small, in the direction indicated. If the signal fades, reassess. If it strengthens, continue. Small actions open larger doors, and larger doors demand steadier presence. This is the rhythm of transformation. Intention, alignment, action, repeated in cycles until your life itself becomes a dialogue with synchronicity. Many people fail at this stage because they hesitate. They demand absolute proof, forgetting that life rarely offers certainty in advance. Certainty emerges through movement. Reality rewards responsiveness. Each step you take in trust strengthens the feedback loop, making future signals more precise. In this way, synchronicity becomes not only a phenomenon to admire, but a practical tool of navigation. It teaches you to decide where to place your energy, your love, and your time. It transforms coincidence into compass. The daily art of noticing. In the end, Synchronicity is not meant to be admired from a distance like a rare comet flashing once in a lifetime. It is a daily art, a way of walking through the world with ears open to whispers and eyes open to subtle signs. Life is not random, static. It is a story with rhythm and emphasis, a dialogue unfolding between your inner state and the wider universe. When you doubt everything, the world whispers so faintly you can barely hear. When you begin to listen with curiosity, the world speaks more clearly. And when you act, reality itself seems to move with you, arranging opportunities, connections, and moments of perfect timing. Perhaps you have already glimpsed this truth. You have thought of someone and they appeared. You have asked for guidance, and a phrase echoed back from unexpected mouths. You have noticed numbers following you, almost insistent. These are not accidents but invitations. The question is not whether synchronicities exist. They are constant, but whether you will allow yourself to engage with them. The art of noticing is the art of cooperation with life. It requires honesty, patience, and courage. It asks you to treat meaning not as superstition but as signal. To live this way is to restore depth to daily existence. Each walk outside becomes an opportunity to hear the dialogue. Each encounter carries potential significance. This does not mean paranoia, searching desperately for omens everywhere. It means balance, letting the meaningful stand out naturally, as bold text stands out on a page. Over time, you realize that life is guiding you, not with a rigid script, but with subtle emphasis, like a composer repeating motifs in a symphony. And so the invitation remains. Notice, reflect, act. Keep your questions honest, your state serene, your steps coherent. The more you align with this rhythm, the more reality reveals itself as responsive rather than indifferent. Coincidences stop feeling random. Life stops feeling mechanical. You begin to sense the choreography you are part of, the dance that has been unfolding around you all along. If this message resonated with you, type "I understood" in the comments. And before you go, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. Share this video with someone who needs it. It may be the sign they were waiting for. Synchronicities are not rare. They are everywhere, waiting for you to finally see them.